12 hours of terror in the Trinity Forest. Okay, let's just dive right into this explainer and unpack a completely harrowing incident that totally derailed what was supposed to be just a normal, routine workday for two U.S. Forest Service employees. We're looking at a deeply tense 12-hour hostage standoff that unfolded in Northern California, and it required a massive, highly coordinated response to resolve. It's honestly a textbook example of how fast a quiet, peaceful environment can flip into a high-stakes emergency. Imagine just heading out into the woods for work, only to suddenly find yourself in a fight for your survival. So how does a routine workday in the forest turn into a 12-hour armed standoff, right? That is the question at the very heart of this whole ordeal. We're going to explore how these two seasonal workers, literally just out there doing their jobs, found themselves zip-tied in a secluded trailer held hostage by a father and son duo. When you think about workplace hazards for forest workers, you're usually thinking about wildlife, maybe bad weather, or tripping over rough terrain. You definitely don't anticipate an armed abduction. It really highlights how vulnerable a remote civil servants are when they're working miles away from any immediate help. Shasta Trinity National Forest, over 50 miles south of the Oregon-California border. Now, to truly understand why this situation was so incredibly difficult to manage, we have to talk about the geography. This all went down deep in the rugged wilderness outside the small city of Mount Shasta. It's an absolutely beautiful, remote location, but that exact remoteness quickly became a tactical nightmare for law enforcement. Actually, when you're that far off the grid, standard police procedures pretty much go right out the window. Before 11 a.m., the kidnapping occurs. 4 p.m., negotiations begin. 2 a.m., hostages released safely, and 2:40 a.m., the suspects surrender. So looking at this timeline is absolutely crucial for understanding how a morning abduction stretched into this grueling overnight rescue. The kidnapping happens sometime before 11 a.m., but because of those massive logistical hurdles we just mentioned, direct negotiations didn't even start until 4 p.m. That is just hours of pure, high-anxiety isolation for those hostages. The standoff then dragged all the way into the early hours of Friday, with the hostages finally getting out just before 2 a.m. and the suspects surrendering at 2:40. It really puts the sheer endurance of everyone involved into perspective. They weren't patrolling there, they were just going to do their work. It was just seasonal work they would do on a regular basis. That's a quote from U.S. Forest Service Chief Tom Schultz, and it brilliantly hits the nail on the head regarding how unexpectedly this danger arrived. These folks weren't armed law enforcement officers out on patrol, they weren't conducting a raid, they were literally just carrying out their regular seasonal field duties. It really emphasizes the absolute randomness of this crime. Just ordinary civilians transformed into hostages in the blink of an eye. Then 911 call. So the suspect alerts authorities, holding the workers at gunpoint and demanding to speak with the FBI. Okay, this part is wild. What really sets this incident apart is how the authorities actually found out about it. The spark that kicked off this massive standoff was a bizarre 911 call from the 49-year-old suspect himself, Joseph Charles Henriksen. He essentially called to say, hey, I have these workers zip-tied, I'm heavily armed, and I want to speak to the FBI. It's a completely chilling move that instantly escalated the situation from a possible missing persons case into a confirmed active federal hostage crisis. This triggered a massive multi-agency response, pulling in the FBI, SWAT teams, specialized hostage negotiators, a bomb squad, and even snipers. Because the suspect specifically demanded the FBI and claimed to be armed to the teeth, local authorities couldn't just handle this solo. The response was completely overwhelming. You had highly specialized federal and local resources teaming up, trying to coordinate and manage an incredibly volatile situation. This is remote Northern California, tough to get resources in and out. It's a small one-lane road. It is rough terrain. Shasta County Sheriff Michael Johnson perfectly captures the nightmare logistics here. Having all those specialized tactical teams is great, but getting them to the scene, that's a whole different story. This isn't some city street where you can just roll up at an armored truck. Responders had to funnel a massive tactical force down a tiny single-lane mountain road. Moving a bomb squad and mobile command centers into a bottleneck like that is incredibly dangerous and time-consuming. Law enforcement deployed aerial drones to safely locate the hidden trailer in the rugged terrain. To overcome that geographic blindness without, walking straight into an ambush, authorities made a really smart tactical move: drones. By putting eyes in the sky, they were able to safely scan the dense woods and pinpoint the exact location of that secluded trailer. It's a fantastic example of modern tech providing a crucial edge, basically mapping out the danger zone before putting a single officer in harm's way on the ground.
At 4 p.m., negotiators established direct contact to resolve the potential conflict. Now, what's really staggering here is that time gap. Even with drones finding the trailer, navigating that rough terrain meant it took until around 4 p.m. for negotiators to finally establish direct communication with Henriksen and his adult son, Phoenix. This was a critical shift, moving from a frantic search and contain mission into the highly delicate psychological game of hostage negotiation.
12. For 12 agonizing hours, these two employees were held captive at gunpoint. Can you even imagine? It's a profound test of psychological endurance. Being completely isolated, zip-tied, having no idea if you're going to survive the night. And on the flip side, it required immense tactical patience from the law enforcement teams outside. They had to hold a perimeter in the dark wilderness, while negotiators slowly, methodically worked to de-escalate this heavily armed father and son. Just before 2 a.m., both hostages were released from the trailer without serious injuries. Fortunately, all that incredible patience paid off. Just before 2 a.m. on Friday, we got a massive breakthrough. Both hostages were safely released. And the best part? Officials confirmed they walked away from this terrifying ordeal entirely unharmed. Literally the absolute best-case scenario for the rescue teams and a massive relief for their families, right? 40 minutes later, the father and son emerged from the trailer and were taken into custody. Now, the standoffs didn't end the exact second the hostages were free. The suspects were still armed and barricaded inside. But about 40 minutes later, around 2:40 a.m., law enforcement secured a peaceful surrender. Joseph and Phoenix Henriksen walked out and were arrested. What's truly remarkable here is the sheer discipline of those tactical teams. They resolved a 12-hour armed standoff without firing a single shot.
The suspects' claimed arsenal at surrender included an AR-15 rifle, multiple knives, and claimed possession of grenades. The sheer danger of the situation is just staggering when you look at this. The FBI reported that Charles Henriksen had the rifle and the knives and, get this, he even claimed to have grenades. That right there underscores exactly why they needed a bomb squad and snipers on site. It really shows how catastrophic this whole thing could have been if talks had broken down. The suspects are now facing federal charges for kidnapping a federal employee. With the immediate threat finally neutralized, the legal process has swiftly taken over. Because these victims were U.S. Forest Service workers on the job, this is way beyond a local crime. The U.S. Attorney's Office has stepped in, and they are bringing down the hammer, pressing severe federal kidnapping charges against both the father and the son. So, what was the motive? As we wrap up this explainer, we are left staring at a really chilling, unanswered question: why? Why on earth did this heavily armed duo target two innocent forest workers who were just out there doing their seasonal tasks? As of right now, investigators still don't have an answer, and it's even unclear if the suspects actually lived in that trailer. It's a haunting mystery that leaves us wondering what exactly triggered 12 hours of terror in the Trinity Forest. And more importantly, how safe are our remote workers, really? Thanks for joining me to unpack this incredible response effort, and keep learning.